Yeah, I think through this camera is something, but I think.
So all of you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi. So first of all, welcome today and thank you so much for joining for this lovely discussion that we are going to have on dementia care today. So my name is Kajal Tanwar and I am a counseling psychologist working with 50 pluses from the past 2.5 years. And I must tell you that it has been a very great experience dealing with all the seniors. I thought that I'll be helping them, making their life simpler and sharing my knowledge that I have gained throughout, and will be able to simplify their lives as they are going through a rough patch of life. But working with them has given me so much of happiness, so much of knowledge, learning, going through their lifespan, their experiences, the challenges that they have gone through. It has been a very overwhelming journey for me and a happy one, I guess. And I am a very motivated person since I have been working with them. So yeah, that is one thing that I wanted to share. And today with us, we have Dr. Mrigna Nagraj, who's a leading expert in dementia care, and she has joined us from Delhi, New Delhi. And also, we have one speaker with us, Mrs. Tripta Neb, sorry. And she is a resilience coach and a caregiver to a loved one who's already dealing with dementia from a long time. So now we will be moving on to the discussion with our today's topic. So I'll share the gist of it, that what all we will be covering today. So basically, we will be going through what is dementia basically, and what are its types, that what are the categories that dementia has, and apart from that, we will be seeing that what all challenges a person who is suffering from dementia can face on a daily basis personally. And then we will move on to the support that we can provide to the people with dementia, and also the emotional and psychological financial impact that it creates on the caregivers that are there, who are dealing with the people suffering from dementia on a daily basis, either they are their parents or their children or anybody who are working with them. And lastly, we will try to gain some insights on the topics that how we can better support the people who are dealing with dementia, and also the caregivers who are uh, putting their 100% and putting all their energy to make their loved one's life a little better, because they're already suffering a lot. So yeah. So first of all, what is dementia? So, in general, if I say what is dementia, dementia is basically a, a very big term that it is in detail that we cannot go on and on right now. So, I'll just brief a little that there are a lot of challenges a person suffering from dementia can go through. There can be memory issues, the person can have thinking problems, the person can have basic issues like problem solving, decision making. It can interfere their daily life tasks and their personality as well, how they deal with people around them, how they deal with themselves, how are they able or not able to drag their day towards, and how they deal with every small task that one is needed to go through their day. So that is what dementia does. It affects your cognitive functioning to a level that it makes it difficult over time. And yeah, sadly to say is that it worsens over time. Even with proper care, we can try and make the life simpler and a little better, but yeah, it worsens over time. So that is what it does to a person. So yeah, moving on to the types of dementia. So Mrigna, will you be helping us out to elaborate a little?
Yeah, Kajal, thank you so much. So basically, when we talk about dementia, So it is like Kajal has very well explained, it's a very umbrella term, whereas when we talk about various types of dementias. And when we talk about types, the commonest known to all of us is Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. Then we can talk about vascular dementia. Vascular dementia, basically what happens is certain parts of our brain may lose the blood supply to it. So depending on what parts have lost the blood supply to, there can be various effects on an individual. And when we talk about vascular dementia, fortunately, unfortunately, this is also one type of dementia which is reversible at times. So if there is a vascular region getting affected, sometimes there's certain dementias which are reversible in nature. So vascular being one of them. Then we can talk about Lewy body dementia. So when we talk about Lewy body dementia, here we talk about a Lewy body, which is basically made up of alpha synuclein proteins in the body. And what happens in these is that people lose a lot of balance at time. There is stiffness. There is sometimes this will hallucinations, uh, daytime sleepiness, and a lot of other things that can be seen. So these are abnormal protein deposits in the brain, leading to all of this cognitive decline. And then we can come to frontotemporal dementia as one of the major types of dementia. FTD, commonly known as, affects the frontal and the temporal part of the brain. If we understand the various parts of the brain, so the frontal part of the brain, the things it controls, our personality, the way we act in front of others, the inhibitions we have. For example, right now, if you may be feeling very hot, but if you are in front of, let's say, your boss, you may not say you're feeling extremely hot because there is an inhibition inside us that what is socially correct to be spoken and what is not. In FTD type of dementia, these inhibitions are gone very quickly. So what happens is then people have, very personality changing things happen. So somebody who has been like very timid all their life, very soft spoken, may start, speaking verbally abusive, or maybe, very harsh speaker suddenly out of nowhere. And this is a kind of dementia in which you see TDP-43 and tau proteins in the brain, so leads to all these changes in the brain, anatomically speaking, and of course, a lot of personality changes in the individual itself. So, talking about dementia, when you're talking about dementia, it's basically something which is affecting older adults, if we understand it very basically, and it's not normal part of the aging, something that we really like to say. So we say, when we age, we become forgetful. Forgetfulness is not dementia. I may open the fridge and I may forget, let's say why I opened the fridge. Maybe I wanted to have a glass of water or I wanted to check a vegetable or whatever. No, that is forgetfulness. Dementia is instead of placing a water bottle or a vegetable or a cake into the fridge, you're placing your shoes, your toilet rolls into the fridge. That is dementia. It's very different. So at times people use this like a slang. No, we've got dementia, we're forgetting. No, it's not. It's not. Forgetfulness is not dementia. Yeah, forgetfulness can happen in dementia, but it's a lot more that we'll be talking about today. So uh, I think we can. I mean, this was a little about the types of
Yeah.
dementia that I could share.
Thank you, Mrigna, for such a detailed information about dementia. I think people generally confuse it with general forgetfulness, and that is, I think, very much needed to create an awareness that it is a serious condition that one goes through, and it is quite challenging. And we cannot just say that, oh, I forgot this, I have this problem, I'm upset, or I have this problem. So yeah, people should not take mental problems so lightly. So yeah, thank you so much. So now I think we will move on to our next topic, that is challenges a person suffering from dementia generally faces throughout their life on a daily basis. So firstly, it will be memory loss, first and foremost. So what happens in memory loss is their short-term memory, long-term memory, everything is affected. Initially, it starts with small things that they forget. That Dr. Mrigna was saying earlier, that we can say that, oh, I wanted to do this task and I forgot that what I wanted to do, or why was I doing it. So it starts with that, and generally what happens is people keep on avoiding these incidents that happen, and over time it worsens. So that is the first thing, that when it is happening on a frequent basis, and when it is happening on the tasks that are important for you on a daily basis, then you should be a little mindful, or the people around you should be a little aware that, okay, we have to look into it. Either it is something that can create a problem in the future. And also, the memory losses is not just related to the short term and long term memory. It can even make it difficult for a person to retain any new information. Let's suppose if a person is suffering from dementia and they're talking to someone has already passed a few stages, let's suppose they're on a stage 2 or something. So it will be difficult for them to have a conversation, and they might forget after like a minute or so that they were talking with someone. They cannot even tell that this person's name is this, or they have a relation to that person. So it becomes so difficult over time. Then moving on to cognitive decline. Obviously, there is a memory deficiency, then there will be cognitive decline, because dementia is something that affects your cognitive functions the most. So it can be anything: a simple task management, a simple problem solving, decision making, that I have to do this. Let's suppose if you give me a choice, that do you want this or do you want that? It'll be simple for me to choose whatever I like. But a person with dementia will get a, a lot of brain fog, and they won't be able to understand that first, why a person is asking me this question, and why is it important for me, and why do I have to choose. So they cannot differentiate between the choices. So yeah, it becomes difficult for them if they have a lot of instructions, a lot of directions, or a lot of material in front of them to choose from it. So yeah, so we have to be mindful that we have to be very simplistic with them. Then comes the physical part, is disorientation. So what can happen is, it is not just mentally, it can be physically as well, that they see, they can forget that what they have to do, and sometimes they can even forget that why are they in a place. Let's suppose they have gone to a mandir or something, they might forget the directions coming back to home, that how do I go back. And they might even forget that how do I use the phone to book a cab or something like that. They can forget that what is the date today or something like that. So there'll be disorientation amongst everything. I cannot remember the dates, I cannot remember what building I am in, what time is it. I can even forget how old am I. So yeah, that happens over time. So it is not something that they are doing it because they're aging. It can be something alarming. It can be a mental issue that we have to address. So moving on to the next point will be difficulty in communication. So what happens is, because our memory and our cognition is getting affected, so what happens is, a person's language sector part of the brain also gets affected over time. So what happens, a person who can have a PhD in the later periods of their life suffering from dementia can forget even the simpler words to communicate. They cannot even remember how to talk to someone, that they have to greet someone, they have to speak. The feeling is there, the emotion is there, they know that they have to do, but the brain is not allowing them to gather that information from the particular part of the brain and to speak. So that is what happens. So they cannot communicate, and over time what happens is, in this hustle of talking or not talking, they choose not to talk, because it creates a lot of confusion. It creates a lot of, I must say that there's a lot of negative feeling as well that comes with that okay, the person is not understanding what I'm trying to tell, because there's a lot of brain fog and they keep on repeating the few words that they can remember. So yeah, that is what happens, and they try not to talk. So they become very silent over time. So next would be changes in behavior. Obviously, if you are not able to talk to someone, you cannot communicate, you cannot tell what you're feeling, there will be changes in your behavior, your mood. and also considering that the person is on a lot of medications because of the condition. So all this adds on. Simpler changes, any simple change, let's suppose a person likes certain things certain ways, even if you move a certain thing that they like, it might disturb them for a very long time, that we might even not realize that this is a particular plant that they have besides them and we have moved it. They must be very attached to the plant and we must have realized that okay, it might be a good idea to remove it to clear out the space for their safety or something, but they might not like it. So yeah, that can be there. And with that comes another problem is they might start withdrawing themselves from their family, their friends, because they're not able to relate to people. I don't know you, I'm not able to identify who you are, why would I be talking to you? So that stage comes. So that is also again one big problem. Then will be daily life tasks. If a person is not able to wake up on time, a person does not know that they have to brush their teeth, they have to do the basic hygiene things, they have to go to the washroom, they don't know how and when do they have to tell that they have the urges, that natural urges to go to a washroom or something like that. Or they forget even the simplest thing, to tie a shoelace or button up their shirts or things like that. So that becomes difficult, and it sometimes lead to frustrations as well, anger issues as well. That I am, because they realize the fact that they're a person who's very bigger in age, but still they're not able to do those simple tasks. So yeah, I am again saying that the cognition is affected, but yeah, the emotions are still there, the emotional factor is still very strong. So that is what leads to the anger, frustration, agitation, everything. So let's move on to the next topic. It will be physical and motor issues. So yeah, sadly, this is something that I feel most of the seniors that I have been working with have come across, and it breaks my heart to see them in this position. That their basic motor skills, their limbs, everything, their finger movements, their grasping skills, everything's get affected. And it is all because our brain is not working properly, the cognition is slowing down, everything is slowing down. And that is what is very difficult, that the simpler things, let's suppose they're not even able to put a spoon in their hands, they cannot grasp a ball or something. So it becomes a very challenging thing for them. They cannot change their clothes, they cannot move around without any assistance. So yeah, that is one thing. So let's move on to the next topic. It will be increased vulnerability. So yes, a person who is not aware of their surroundings, who does not have a well-known idea that who they are, who they belong to, who they have to reach to, can be easily taken advantage of. People who are aware that this person is going through something, they can easily take advantage, because that is how people perceive this thing, that this person is not aware. Let's suppose they have something valuable with them, so they can take advantage of that person, or they can even harm that person. Or let's suppose there's no third person involved, they can harm themselves as well. they can
Yeah,
they can
I
fall,
agree,
or they
Kajal.
can,
So where here we talk, I'm sorry, just adding something to it. So
yeah,
here when we talk about aggression and agitation, it is a very triggered behavior at times in case of dementia that we see. And these triggers can be, at times uh, can be very simple triggers. Like, for example, an individual talking to them in a given way can be a trigger to them. Or, for example, a certain way of dress up can be a trigger. We knew a senior, and she would so she came from a part of the India which was very disturbed in those days. And since that part of India was quite disturbed, and women's safety was a huge issue. So she used to get very anxious, agitated when she would, see women in, let's see, short clothes or cut sleeve clothes. It's very simple, but it became a trigger for her because it used to give her a lot of anxiety. She would go back to those memories of those days when things are not safe for women and women were not allowed to wear such clothes. And, it became a trigger. So I feel when we talk about agitation or aggression, which shouldn't be used interchangeably, of course, when we're talking about this kind of an agitation, it's sometimes a very triggered behavior. So something or some individual or some person or some situation can be a trigger. And once we are able to identify these triggers, a lot of psychological impact of in terms of agitation can be avoided. So I personally feel trigger identification can be a very, very, though it's challenging at times to be able to figure out what things are getting triggered or how things are getting triggered. No, but I feel at times a very interesting thing if we're able to figure out. And like Kajal, you said, so if we kind of summarize it, yes, the emotional question is just on cue, uh, you know, but the memory is not there. So emotionally, if you feel they are there, they have the same reactions and everything else, but yes, the memory is not there, and which is I feel a very major thing in this case. So personally, looking at this from this perspective, they are feeling the emotions, they're feeling everything around. And in this case, I can ask Tripta also to share her experience because while talking about people and the challenges they are facing with somebody with dementia, I think Tripta can be an amazing person to tell us because she has been caring for her mom for a very long time with somebody with dementia, who's somebody with dementia, and has been giving exceptional care to her mom. And Tripta, why don't you share with us? I mean, these are, of course, the pointers you've talked about, but I think from your personal experience, what would you like to share?
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mrigna.
Mrigna. Mrigna, I'd actually like to take the slides back. I was just thinking about it as Kajal was going through each of the pointers towards the challenges. And I think talking through those challenges with examples, not only from my mother, but my grandmother, who also had,
Oh,
would be
yes.
better.
Oh, yes.
So,
That's
Kajal, if you could
amazing.
take the slide back to point number one of challenges of dementia. Right. Okay. So let me start giving you some examples of short-term and long-term memory loss. Um, my grandmother would walk off to the bank, withdraw cash, put it in her drawer, and have no idea that she'd done it. Now, if you look at a place like India, that's a pretty, where there's nothing but house help at home.
Very true.
That's a pretty scary thing. And it wasn't that she'd
Absolutely.
withdraw a couple of hundred, but there would be like 10,000, 15,000 rupees put in her drawer at that time. And I'm talking now 20 years ago, where 10,000
Yeah,
rupees had a lot of value,
of course.
right? Um, you would have with my mom, if you think about the memory loss that she would face, we would talk about something and uh, she would forget that we'd spoken about it. Or there would be confusion, like she insisted with me many times. And that is what prompted me to tell my dad to say, you need to get her checked. Because she kept insisting that my firstborn's gynecologist was actually his pediatrician, which was a lady. But my firstborn's gynecologist was a male gynae. And when this got stuck in her head, that started really bothering me. The when we so when I say when we talk about memory loss, there are some, it's not about the small term confusion or brain fog that I menopausal, I face it, right? Am I headed towards Alzheimer's or dementia? I don't know. But I'm just at the moment happy to put it down to the fact that I am menopausal and I have other problems happening with me. I confuse my words sometimes. I want to say something and I'm like struggling to find the word. Um, so But when you have confusion uh, where you are crossing wires so badly that it becomes apparent to you. But I think for us as caregivers, looking out for people, it is really, really important to be mindful and not brush it off, right? Because as the disease progresses, and I will call this a disease, as this disease progresses, then you look back and you go, oh my God, I should have been more mindful earlier. So I think one of the most important things about identifying this and caring for the individual is to be so present in the moment that you can pick up on these signals. When you talk about difficulties with decision making, problem solving, there was a very, very good uh, description that was given to me as to what's happening with the brain. And I want to share that with you. And that description that was given to me was that if you imagine our brain to be a ball of wool, right? So whilst our memory and everything is linear, that ball of wool is wrapped up and it's contained in our heads. Now, in that ball of wool, you start cutting it, putting a scissor through it, right? So it's not like that the memory is lost. It's not like there is no cognition. But when you start cutting that linear memory, what connects with when, we don't know, right? So I might have 10 words of this particular memory, or short term or long term, connecting with something that is quite random. And that's when you start going, what are you talking about? Right. And because we know the person so well and we have shared memories, our instant thing goes to, no, that's not correct. This is what happened. And when we and it's natural for us to then want to correct a person, but unfortunately that is the worst thing that we're doing for that individual, right? Is trying to correct that person, because remember that ball of wool,
Yeah.
it's not connecting. So for them,
Yeah.
their
So
connection
this
is their
thing has a
reality.
huge impact. I agree with you, Tripta. So this thing has a very huge impact in terms of correcting the person because they firmly believe what they believe in. Like all of us, if we know this is like this is my farm, I believe in that. They firmly believe in what they believe in. And the impact of you don't remember or you don't know or you are incorrect is very tremendous. It's a
Yeah.
huge impact that we would like to talk about when we talk about supporting such individuals. So we'll be taking up then. But of course, thanks for pointing it out. It's amazing. Yeah.
Right. So those, I mean, like you use the word triggers. What, to say that certain behaviors are triggered in a dementia care patient. And I found that with my mother, is correcting her on whether it was a memory or an action was a massive trigger, right? Disorientation, I think that's quite common, getting lost. My father had to deal with it. He couldn't understand how, if he let her go to a washroom in a mall where he was standing outside, that she would get lost. But that happened, where he just turned his head and she walked past him,
Mm.
and then she was lost. So when it is hard, and for I think I'm going to keep pointing it out from the point of view of a caregiver, what you're looking at and what your innate reaction is going to be to that person, because we are working from a very rational, functioning mind with a lot of shared memories. And especially when it comes to parents, they have taught us what we know. So now looking at them, we're expecting them to know these things. And I would just say that every time you expect them to know something, you go, ball of wool, it's been hacked. And keep that picture at the top of your mind, right? And that hacking increases and continues as the disease progresses, right? If we go to the next slide, difficulty communicating and understanding the language, can't find the right word. So now I want to introduce a second thing to you. So one is, imagine this ball of wool that's connecting in different places. Obviously, there's going to be difficulty of understanding the language, right? Because you're not picking up the right word, it's connecting with another point. So communication is going to be impaired, but communication, not just verbally, but equally taking it in is also impaired, right? With regards to keep repeating themselves. So if you were to think that any activity has 4 stages. So let's say I want to eat. So first in our minds, there's this recognition that I'm hungry, I want to eat. Then I go and serve myself some food. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is I will pick up this knives and forks or whatever I'm going to use to eat, and then I will feed myself, right? And when I'm full, I will stop. So these are the different stages. Now, again, the ball of wool comes into play because I let's say I know I'm hungry and I've served myself food and I sit down at the table. Now I'm looking at my plate saying, what am I supposed to do with this? Why is this plate in front of me? Because there's another connection that's gone on over there. Or, I started eating, but the signal to say that stop eating is not there in that moment. And I want to, we would have this. It was so momentary where, let's say my mom went to the washroom. She'd go to the washroom, she'd come back, she'd get up and go to the washroom again. She'd come back, she'd get up and go to the washroom again. She'd come back because the connection that she had been was not there. So it was stuck, the needle was stuck on, I have an urge to go to the washroom. So I need to go to the washroom. And that needle got
Very,
stuck,
I agree,
right?
Tripta. So a lot of time we observe this. So there is a very repetitive behavior in the sense, especially it comes to food. So they sometimes gain a lot of weight because of that. Because once they eat, they've forgotten they have had food again, they would ask again, again. And if the food is like freely served or if the fridge is available freely, so at times there's overeating or at times there is undereating. They feel, oh, I just ate. So these instincts go on a very haywire balance. It's pretty observed. I mean, we have also observed in a lot of people this thing. Very true.
Right. So that's another thing to be mindful of. And at that point, telling my mom to say, but you've just been, no, I want to go, right? So again, it was trying to impact their rationality. I found was the worst decision I could have made, right? So and also when you're trying to impact their rationality, which talks to the increased vulnerability, mom and my grandmother, they both always knew that there was something wrong with them. They knew it, but they didn't know
They didn't know
what
how
to do about it,
to.
and they didn't know how to do about what was wrong with them and how to manage that, right? So safety, and with regards to their safety concerns, this is, I would say next level. So when I say next level, there are so many things that we take for granted in our household. So many things we take for granted. We think that a rug on the floor is okay. It's been there my entire life. How harmful can a rug on the floor be? It's harmful. And the
Yes.
worst thing about people with dementia is that as their disease progresses, with every physical issue that they have, their dementia gets worse. So, and they are unable to say. So, a simple fall for you and me is okay. We'll say, oh, it's hurting, we'll treat ourselves and we'll move on. But a simple fall for them is not okay because they can't express to you how much pain they're in. They can't tell you where it's hurting. They can't tell you if they've got an upset stomach. They can't tell you if, they have a UTI. They can't tell you, any of these symptoms that you and I take for granted. And that was heartbreaking when it came to my mother. It was absolutely heartbreaking. So to be able to switch my mindset for that was, whilst taking care of her, was, I think, one of the most difficult things, to be able to anticipate everything. And I think the best thing that we can do in that situation is to consider what we did for our firstborn just as they were newborn babies, because we took them for to be babies, to know that they know nothing, right? And we took it from there. But here we're getting verbal feedback, and then we get caught in that battle of trying to rationalize with that verbal feedback that we're getting, right?
Yeah,
And this emotional and psychological impact on them, as I said, they know that there is something wrong with them. Mom has always known. My grandmother always knew that there was something wrong with her. But I think it's also a part of, our defense. Oh, yeah. One of the other things that mom would do is she would overcompensate. So mom, was a very lively person, a very, very social, outgoing person, lots of stories to tell. And so when she, when, when I try to tell people that, mom has dementia, oh no, she's fine. Look at her, right? Because she was just always so out there. But I knew her stories. A stranger or a friend or somebody in a social
you're
circle
not able
doesn't
to
know her stories,
pinpoint. Very true.
right? So
Yeah.
people around you won't necessarily pick up on that. And in fact, you yourself, I felt, come on, she'll be fine. And unfortunately, I would say that she was masking the extent of her disease, which my father, he was her primary caregiver first. And it was very difficult for him to, separate his emotions from the situation with mom's, right? And with what mom's need, because she was still talking, she was still walking, she was still her angry old self. And but a lot of masking was going on, and you could pick that up when you start looking at the difference between the level of anger and the level of frustration that she would go through when you said a simple no to her, to say, no, you can't buy this, or no, you can't buy that. So I think, we need to be mindful of the fact that before us seeing it, they're already experiencing it. And they are so, whilst the rest of the cognitive function is impaired, they are so aware that something is not right with them.
Yeah. Totally. I totally agree with you. I think if we are on level 1 that we're experiencing the pain that they are going through, they are on level 10, they're experiencing it on 10 folds, way more than we are knowing it, because we are seeing it from the outside. That they're
Yeah.
feeling it emotionally, mentally, physically on a daily basis, and it becomes difficult for a person who has been, as you said, that your mother was very outgoing, and it becomes very difficult for a person to like completely seeing their life turn into a 360-degree, and they're not able to do the simpler things that they used to do. And I think people are not that aware, and I would say that their emotional quotient is not that strong, that they should be aware that they should not be pointing these things, that oh, you would do these things so easily, now you're not able to do this. So yeah, we should be mindful of that when dealing with such a situation. So yeah, saddening it is that we have to create more awareness of it. But I would say that, Tipta, thank you so much for such insightful information from a personal point of view that you have been through your life with your mother and your grandmother. It was really nice to have such good pointers, because I think it will help us on a personal level as well as professional to deal with people who are suffering. And if we have cues around us, so we can like guide other people as well. And Mrigna, as well to you, that thank you so much for giving us such good information from your professional background and everything. So I think you guys have created a very good balance, sharing your personal and professional views on the topic. So I think it'll be good for everybody to jot down the important points if anybody around them needs this kind of an awareness, so it'll be very handy to them. So I think we should move on to our next slide then.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So just a second. So now that we have been through the challenges that a person would face, we will be now moving on to the support that we can provide to people who are suffering with dementia. Just a second. One more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some strategies that we can use to manage the symptoms in order to make their life simpler, or we can say that we can improve their quality of life. So what we can do is, first and foremost, is anybody in the world who has to run their day in a positive manner should have a routine or a schedule made, because that is the easiest way to know that okay, this is the time for this particular thing that is to be done. This is something appropriate for this time. Let's suppose you get up in the morning at this time, you have your bath, you have your breakfast by this time, you have your nap, you have your medication. So there should be a proper routine. So what happens is, this routine not only is helpful in a physical manner, it will be helpful in a mental manner as well, because this routine over time will create a loop that the person will be able to move around things very easily, not just physically, emotionally and mentally as well, because it
Yeah,
becomes a
Kajal,
habit over time.
that's
It is like rehearsing over and over again. So
true.
that will be a habit that we will be creating, and we will try to simplify it as much as we can. That there will be very simple tasks throughout the day, but we will be repeating it, and we will be repeating it on the same time every day.
Very true, Kajal. I agree with you. And honestly, when we're talking about supporting people with dementia, we're talking about moreover the kind of approach that we like to follow in 50 plus, or the kind of approach we feel is very appropriate, is a positive approach or a stimulatory approach to dementia. So, like, Tripta was explaining us, the brain is like the wool, and the connections are cut. I cannot repair those connections. I cannot regenerate the brain or the damage that has already occurred. I think nobody should claim that they can. Unfortunately, I know still some people in the industry who claim, they can repair and cure people from dementia. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Yes, what we can do, we can manage A, the symptoms. B, what we can manage is on the personal front, the way their life or their day goes about, giving them a more quality life. And see, what we can manage is the caregiver stress. The caregiver who's actually there physically taking care, taking a toll on their own mental health. So, this positive approach when we talk about in dementia care is super important. And I feel the stimulatory approach as a mental health professional or as somebody who works in the field of dementia, we should keep trying supporting people with dementia with this positive approach as long as possible. So, what this positive approach that I'm all talking about does, it basically what it does is see, there are certain parts of the brain which are not functioning, the connections are messed up. So, let's work with the parts that are working. For example, one of my seniors I met and I was talking to her and I said, Hi. So one way of going about this conversation could be, "Hi, I'm this. Do you remember me?" And she would probably say, "No, I don't," or "I don't know you," you know, which might be just the way to go about it. And then the commonest reaction that people give is, "Oh, you don't remember me. You don't remember." So this gives a very negative impact to the individual who's actually with the disease or who is suffering with the whole condition. So personally, when we talk about a positive approach, you may go first your voice, tone, and your body language. It matters a lot because, like we talked about it throughout the seminar, that they're emotionally there. They're emotionally there. The EQ is present. They're emotionally the person they are. So imagine if I was head of a principal of a college, I still carry those emotions of being a superior person, being a head. And if somebody comes and starts dictating me where to sit, where to get up, that what I'm thinking is not correct, what I'm doing is not correct, this is conflicting with my personality. And this is what leads to a lot of agitation. So I personally believe, or we in 50 plus personally believe, that each individual with dementia is certainly unique. Their dementia is unique, the way to handle their dementia is unique. Why? Because the person in itself has lived a unique life. They have a unique personality, you know. So through routine structuring, like Kajal was explaining us, was another way of handling it. And the best way to handle is maybe just when you reach to them, when you're trying to converse, "Hi, hi, I'm this," instead of asking, "Do you remember who I am?" Because this is the commonest thing I've seen with a lot of families. They know somebody's with memory problems, they'll just reach the person, "You remember who I am?" No, instead go introduce yourself. "Hi, I'm Rigna." And I used to do it with my grandmother every day. So, and then she would start saying, I have somebody in my family whose name is the same. And I would say, "Wow, and do I look familiar?" She said, "No, she's this 2-year-old baby." So she would remember me as I was a 2-year-old baby. And this is how, okay, this is how she would feel that I'm a friendly figure and I'm not there to do any harm to her. So those fears are taken away. A person is open to converse and have open-ended conversations with them, something that doesn't require an immediate answer, something that doesn't require, even if they don't know, it's okay. you know some conversations like this, and these are the memory aids we feel that have really helped individual reminiscent memories, talking about the past, beautiful memories they've had. And like Tripta was explaining, yeah, of course it is difficult at times because the stories are not the same. But it's all right if it's not the same story, even if they're able to remember a part of it, which is not the same. It's amazing. It's amazing in itself. Because what we're trying to do here is not to make new connections, not to repair the parts of the brain, not to heal the person, but to use the part of the brain which is not being used, to use the alternative connections that are not being used so far. Various
I'd
therapies.
just like to say,
Yeah,
Mrigna, over here. So, if you want to also know the scientific part, remember I said that that scissor is going through the ball of wool, but it's going through slowly, right? So, when you set up a routine and a structure, what is happening is you are forming a new neural pathways in an unaffected part of the brain, right?
very true.
Which is not
Very
affected
true.
right now. And
Very
also,
true.
routine and structure uh, give everybody comfort, right? It gives us what I would like to say, regular people who are without dementia, routine and comfort. It might be boring, but it gives us comfort. So, what we want to do, remember that I said that that they know something is wrong with them. So, when something is wrong with you, what do you want? You want comfort to know that it's going to be okay. And, the
Very true.
routine and structure gives them that. One of the things that I initially didn't even understand about routine and structure was it's not just the activities that they are involved in, but that routine is also of people in their lives. So they being the same or maintaining, I would actually change routine and word to say maintaining consistency. Consistency of people, consistency of activity, consistency of food, consistency. That was
Yeah.
eventually what calmed mom down
Mm.
and slowed her, shall I say, decline in dementia. But the minute there were changes, in the last, sadly, in the last 3 years, there were too many changes in her life, and that's when we lost her. She doesn't speak anymore. She doesn't move anymore, and we've got to be mindful with every setback somebody has in somebody with dementia has, recovering from that setback, whatever nature of that setback is that much harder.
Yeah, Tripta, I understand and I do agree with this. I mean, at times it's hard, at times it's not possible also.
Yeah.
Some things, sometimes difficulty with which are not there, or things that cognitively we have lost. Yes, it is difficult to come back to that. So I think I'll let Kajal, go ahead with towards the end of the slides. And yeah,
So we are done with the support that we can provide via routine structure, the memory aids, as Mrigna was explaining. We can opt for therapies as well. And yeah, the most needed is support for the caregivers, as Tripta was explaining. So thank you to both of you. Moving on to the next slide.
I want to just share with the audience over here. So Mrigna's team used to provide therapy for mom for many years. And the type of therapy that they provided, it moved with her, shall I say, disease. So it was really, and the great thing was Sona, the psychologist who worked with mom, um, her disposition was just so amazing, and um, it really helped. My mother would look forward to her time with Sona, not because it was therapy. I don't think she registered it as therapy, but because of the way it was approached and because it became a routine. um she I think that was her comfort spot, because she was in a totally non-judgmental space. Whilst we're not judging, but our behavior can come across as judging to them, because we forget that we're not supposed to correct, we're not rationalize, and we're not supposed to do this, and we're not supposed to do that.
yeah,
You know, uh, so the physical therapy, as well as the therapy sessions that she would have, and sometimes they were just reading sessions, or they were just getting her to draw, or they were getting her to, Sona would talk to her about her favorite times and whatever those memories were, because Sona was not aware of those memories. So Sona would never correct her, if you see what I'm saying, right? And that
yeah.
really, really helped her emotionally, really helped her emotionally.
That's true. I mean, for a caregiver perspective, Tripta, I totally understand. It's very exhausting. I mean, emotionally straining, of course, because we're there. We know we don't have to do a lot of things. Like, we don't have to correct her. We don't have to tell her to do these things or those things. But at the end of the day, because we're physically so exhausted, we're emotionally strained, there is a sense of, I mean, especially somebody who is a primary caregiver, like your father was, there's a lot of sense of social isolation that I felt in him, towards, the last years of his life. That, and of course, the financial burden of it altogether. This whole impact, I think we all have observed during, this time, and I feel, I mean. Another time I would love to talk, about the caregiver respite or how we can help in such situations, especially the caregiver, I feel needs a lot of help in this case. And this particular topic we call as caregiver respite, whereas we talk about what are the things, how we can help actually uh, individual or a person who is actually caring for somebody with dementia. which in itself is Tripta can maybe, try to help us because she was a very huge part of the support system for her father, who was taking care of her mother during that time, and then becoming a primary caregiver herself to her parents. So yeah, Tripta, please, if you would like to
Gosh,
like summarize it up a little. I know it's very emotional.
I all I would say is that if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. Okay, so the first order of the day is A, for you to make yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally solid. And when I say solid, it's as I said, most of us are taking care of our parents when our parents have been the ones to raise us. So seeing and trying to deal with it from this perspective is in itself a huge thing. The second, as I said, was, we know their stories. So, and we're rational or we are cognitive. So, this thing of wanting to correct the next person or wanting to deny the next person. So, there are tactics that Mrigna taught me. One was, agree and deflect. Don't say no, for example. Agree and change topic. Whatever they're feeling, agree with them, whatever they're saying, agree with them and switch topics because and then move them to whatever it is that you want them to do. Now, the pressures are the fact that it's it's time consuming. It's
It
physically
is.
exhausting, it's mentally exhausting, and it's emotionally exhausting. And when you're exhausted, that means your limbic system is triggered. I remember so vividly this one day we were trying to go out, and mom was still talking and walking about, but she would get stuck. And I wanted her to wear, I didn't want her, I wanted her to wear something, and she was just refusing to wear it. She wanted to wear something else. And it became a screaming battle between her and me. And what a lost cause, the poor thing, but I was unable to, at that time, I was so exhausted that I was unable to control myself, even though I knew what she was going through.
Yeah.
And it was that day that I decided that I had to make sure that I was out of the house taking care of myself. And that's when I signed up to becoming a yoga teacher so that I could find my own balance. And you know what? For me, that practice actually taught me how to be present to mom and accept her for where she is and how she is. Today, I talk to her on a daily basis. Well, I talk to her, she doesn't respond. So her dementia care
Yeah.
facility will call me in the morning and I talk to her like she's all there. I will be mindful of the fact that I talk to her about memories that she has chances of remembering more, which are her childhood days and the stories that she told me. And I'll say, "Oh, remember Sister Connie? And remember when you were, flying down, Ella, Nani told me the story that she was flying down the corridor, flapping her wings and singing, I'm a bird. And I can see my mother open her eyes and pay full attention to the stories that I'm talking, or just
Right.
the conversation between Ella and me, and she's sitting on WhatsApp watching me. She feels that she's a part of my life for that 1 hour every morning. And I just, as I said, I treat her as normal. And but I have no expectations from her or of her.
Yeah. Right.
And I think getting to that stage was huge. Not having any expectations, no expectations of a response, no expectations of saying something correct, right, wrong, indifferent, nothing. I have no expectations.
Yeah.
And when she doesn't say, I love you back, it's not personal because I know she loves me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Tripta, and thank you so much for such good details that you have provided today. So let's summarize the discussion with our last topic, that is how we can help the caregivers. Let's have a little talk about that. So I'll brief a little. We can educate them emotionally, physically, that what all changes can be there. Then we can build up a proper system for them, as in because it's not just the person who's going through dementia, the person who's providing the care also needs counseling. They also need constant care, because they also get exhausted in the process, physically, emotionally. And yeah, also there's one thing I would say is financial burden is also there, because it takes a lot of efforts to provide a very good life to a person suffering through such a disease. And they have got so many they need to have a lot of ailments around, they need to have a lot of medications, regular checkups, they need to have therapy. So yeah, it is going to be very financially exhausting. So that is where we can look out for options that can provide us better ways to handle this. We can opt out for legalities, financial aids. And also one thing is, I would say that a person anywhere who is looking after someone suffering from dementia, they should keep this in mind, that their physical health is also very important. Because if they are not going to be fit emotionally and physically, then it will be way more challenging to deal with the person suffering from dementia, because they cannot handle themselves on their own. So yeah, that will be all from my side. With that, I would like to ask one thing from Rigna. See, we have concluded our presentation with this. We have gone through various topics, how a caregiver can go through, how a person suffering from dementia can go through. So what do you think can be the challenges, and how we can better support the caregivers? What will be your point of view, if you would like to add something?
Honestly, if you've asked me something that I tell every kid that I meet or every spouse that I meet who is taking care of somebody with dementia. So I tell them the same story. So you all have, I think, flown into a flight. And when we go into a flight, they say, in case of emergency, the doors are this side and everything is here. And the oxygen mask will drop. So once the oxygen mask drop, please help yourself first and then help the people around you. And this is my same advice that I would get to anyone or anyone and everyone who's listening to us today, who has very graciously joined us or who would be listening to this recording, who has somebody with dementia. Please pull your oxygen mask first. Take care of your own mental health, your own physical health first. Then only you will be able to help or care for somebody with dementia. It's exhausting, it's time taking, but yes, we do it out of the love we have for them in our hearts. And remember, they may not be there, like Tripta was explaining. Mentally, they may not be there. Cognitively, they may not be there. But emotionally, they are there. So remember this, and this is the only reward I feel that we receive by the end of the day in this care process. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tripta. Thanks, Kajal. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this day. And I hope you all have a wonderful day or a great night ahead. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, both of
Thanks,
you.
Pragna.